We got time?
I'll do.
Oh, yeah, good, still,
I'll do time this goes.
my goodness, that was so bad, I fell last time.
Okay.
All right, lay it on us.
All right, so I'm Shawn McCoy, UF professor, and I work at the VA Medical Center. I'm here to present McCoy Technology Solutions. We're a technology solutions company focused on supply chain accountability, temperature monitoring for the perishable goods transport industry, and also mosquito population control and abatement. So the two main problems are perishable goods transport and mosquitoes, which are both temperature dependent. There's a lot of loss, a lot of shrinkage, and in recent news you've seen with mosquitoes there's increased risk of death and illness due to mosquito-borne illness, and we have one hardware solution that addresses both problems. So we have a test site in spring 2013 with LaMonica Fine Foods already scheduled for seafood transport. So they're a seafood distributor that ships from New Jersey all the way out to Santa Monica, California. What they currently have is that truckers have been turning off the trucks, letting refrigeration temperatures rise and fall, which has a problematic on goods for the quality of the fresh fish, because the freeze-thaw cycles affects the palatability of the fresh fish and also increases the risk of contamination and disease. So we're able to monitor the goods in transport for their temperature the entire time, wirelessly transmitted to either the driver receiver or in later stages through cellular devices to ensure supply chain accountability, enhance logistics, and reputation management. Because the hardest part is with these distributors is once you get into, say, Darden restaurants, etc., it's very hard to get those contracts back if you're supplying poor goods or if the goods don't arrive in time in a high level of quality, because it takes 3 days per transcontinental shipment. If you don't find out until Friday, they're going to be out the whole weekend for their lobsters, crabs, etc. So what's wrong with McCoy? We want to allow businesses to compete and monetize freshness. So there's born on dating, etc. We want people to be able, consumers to be at ease with retailers providing them as the most data. We're a data-rich society. We're always checking our phones and everything like that. We want to be able to check and make sure those products are fresh that you're receiving at the store. We want to provide the store the opportunity to monitor and change sales tactics based upon the perishability of their goods. We have a cost-effective, non-toxic mosquito trap that we're in the disclosure stage for that because we're using the temperature sensors that we're using for perishable goods transport to also monitor the breeding pools in early season to apply pesticides and other reduction biological controls in the most effective way. So we want to be able to track the conditions of these perishable goods, so we're going to be a third-party supply chain accountability firm. We're going to bank that data, sell it back to an individual's recurring revenue stream so that there's another way for them to monitor and put in liability claims. So like the LaMonica example was an $84,000 shipment of fresh and frozen fish. The only reason why LaMonica recovered that is because the dock hand at the receiving site had noted that the temperature was out of range when they pulled into the yard. Otherwise, if that guy could have gotten it up there by the time they unloaded it or nobody made a notation, LaMonica's out the quality of the food, the $84,000 in inventory, and they have no compensation. So simply, the design is it's a temperature humidity sensor that has a microprocessor. It uses ANT wireless technology to transmit that data, to burst that data to a smart device, and then there's an adaptable graphic user interface and a back-end system so the customer can view it in whichever way that they find the solution provides. So the usual introduction to the supply chain for the seafood is we go from seafood to the warehouse distributor to either retail or to a final end consumer store like Red Lobster and Darden restaurants. It's a flexible platform. We can log 25,000 data points, so one of the competitive advantages is we can monitor more data points and for a longer period of time with a better battery life. So the turnover is less in these devices, and other devices are also disposable. So we're not always disposing these things into the environment. We're mostly replacing batteries, remanufacturing, refurbishing, and shipping them back out. Currently the range is about 65 feet. We hope to be able to maximize that with antennas up to 100, 150 feet. But 65 feet, depending upon the shielding, will get us from the back of a truck to the cab of the truck. So we know that we can attain that. So what we're looking at for seafood is stability algorithms. One of our other differentiating factors is everybody can measure temperature, you can do it, but how do you quantitate it, how do you track it and make it usable as data. So what we can do is we can put it with Dr. Bruce Welt at the University of Florida. We're going to work through different stability algorithms for each of our contracted clients for different types of seafood. So you can see in the red line there's a danger curve where if something, the dynamic overall exposure, if it goes above this line, we know that the temperature has been exposed to is in a range that we don't want to give out to consumers. So we see the fluctuation, and this is a simple traffic light, is that the shelf life remaining is what the retailer says, this is what I want my reputation to be based on. So we've talked with Eggland's Best and things, so depending upon quality parameters, they're willing to keep a product on the shelf that's within this 20% range, which would be acceptable to them. This is the marginal range, and then this would be that they'd have, shrinkage or loss for the product. And we can overlay that on the algorithm. So simply what we're able to do is allow that produce manager, the seafood guy, the meat guy, they know that the products have been there, the temperature's been monitored, how is it varied, is there a bad refrigerator or freezer, plus the entire time in transport. We can give them an estimation of, hey, maybe you need to start discounting the bananas on Tuesday because they've been exposed to these temperatures based upon how they ripen. By Wednesday morning, they're gonna have brown spots and you're gonna sell them for $1 less a pound or 50 cents less a pound. So an easy, simple way to tell the retailer at a local level, large or small retailers say, listen, you need to move this product. It's better to lose 25 cents today than to lose 50 cents tomorrow. And this can all be done on their smartphone. So what are the benefits? We reduce product waste, supply chain accountability. There's going to be pending regulations for FDA, USDA, and World Health Organization with transport of vaccines about how you have to monitor these goods in transport. So a lot of those, organizations that you donate to, and they're going to bring vaccines to India, Africa, etc. The problem is that they get too hot in transport because they don't have a cold chain, so half of the polio vaccines and things like that wind up being unusable. We're reducing manufacturer and supplier liability because we can see where somebody dropped the ball. So it was the trucking shipping company, it was at the third-party warehouse, it was at your own docks. Because one of the things we're also looking at monitoring with La Monica is that on their ships, they don't have refrigerated holding tanks for their crabs and some of their crustacean type things. So the thing is, it gets 90 degrees in the middle of the summer. You need to tell the boat to come back. So instead of losing 10 tons because all the crabs are dead and they're not actually alive when they get back to the dock, those guys come in an hour early because the temperature is built up in the tank. Predicts perishable goods shelf life and allows for sales forecasting and inventory management. And enhance logistics through a partner, third-party logistics company, because we know if a product is going bad, we can switch shippers or have somebody else already pick up a load if something happens and the vehicle goes down and try to interface with them. So this was just recently in the Gainesville Sun on October 14th. Said, honey, we should probably get inside before the mosquitoes get any worse. This West Nile virus, so that sounds serious. So you've seen, it's been in the news since 2003 with the highest outbreak. West Nile virus and other mosquito-borne illnesses are growing. What we can do is we can monitor the ponds where they are going to grow and monitor the temperature and apply biological or chemical controls early in the season wirelessly. Because what happens is the mosquito growth cycle, what happens is with the West Nile virus we have growing infection rates, and this is just from the CDC from October up to this year, is 4,000 cases and there's 168 deaths. So what we want to do is monitor, get in the early phase, less pesticides, more biological controls early in the season to reduce mosquito populations. And the reason why is because they carry many diseases. It's the #1 killer worldwide of individuals. Malaria, EE or Eastern equine encephalitis, dengue fever, West Nile. People love their pets. Pets get heartworms from mosquitoes. And we want to be able to reclaim our backyards. So we need a real-time monitoring solution, and the reason why I brought up why we want to be able to do it wirelessly is because what they do is they send these guys out every week to monitor these ponds and temperatures to look at the early season breeding activities of mosquitoes. But if they're going out once every week, there's already a population of mosquitoes that are already in the environment, already infecting birds, pulling blood from us and other animals. They're going to miss on a one-time monitoring. So if there's a slight spike in one area with all the microenvironments, even throughout Gainesville, you're able to monitor those as you move forward. So the current solutions, we've all seen the bug zapper, the spray fog, if you want to have a CO2, propane emitter and things. These are, replacement things that you're gonna do, you have to stay within the zone. The CO2 propane is highly effective. The problem is it costs a little bit more money. Propane is not super cheap. And if you want to spend a lot of time out back and protect your family and pets, you need to make sure that you're always replacing that and it's a consistent renewable device. So we have a monitoring solution for your neighborhood that would be enforced by the state, local authorities or third parties. And then we're also in the disclosure phase of developing a mosquito trap that will attract the mosquitoes and have a container to hold them and kill them. So, and one of the things I didn't know about bug zappers is that what happens when the bug sort of explodes when it hits it is those microfragments and particles can be transmitted up to 30 or so feet if there's a slight breeze. So that gets blown across all of your food and everything like that. So the financials is, we're looking, this is a 3-year projection, and we're going to be testing a mosquito sensor soon with the USDA here on the University of Florida campus. We're looking to sell 2,000 units the first year, 10,000 units the second year, and about 50,000 units by year 3. And this is a combination of units both from the mosquito side and the perishable goods transport and monitoring. So we expect to generate a profit by the 3rd year by using our connections here at the University of Florida and their large expanse of 23 counties that they deliver information to on mosquito population control, and by also just getting a small market share in the perishable goods transport with biological materials, vaccines, and seafood industry where we have personal connections. And so the year 1 funding that we're seeking is $750,000 for the first year. The hardware has already basically been developed. It's a UF patented technology with other disclosures pending, and it's basically for software for both the mosquito and the perishable goods transport. Just to enhance that, we have some code already written, but we can always make it better. We're going to be doing beta testing with Monica Fine Foods and Eggland's Best and the USDA here on campus. And that's really to hire a full-time CEO to handle the business operations and 2 sales associates to start moving some sensors. And then in year 2, we're looking for $1.75 million to just have a fully staffed operation, to get some office space in the hub, and to integrate with cellular software. We've been talking with iTrends down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because Real McCoy already does vendor work for Dole Foods, and they also do Dole food transport for the bananas internationally. So we've been talking about them because they have a GPS tracking system that we're going to look to integrate into. And the management team is a partner, Mohammed Hassan, is the CEO, and he's currently working for a third-party logistics company down in Tampa. And my name's Shawn McCoy, and I work here at the University of Florida in Animal Sciences and also at the VA. And Dr. Bill Eisenstadt is the leader of the engineering team, and we have 6 other MS and PhD engineers currently working on hardware and software solutions. That's here.
Can you go back to your financials real quick?
So just a time, just to tell you, you were like right at 14 minutes or?
About $250,000. Gross revenue, about $5 million.
The year 2 is 1.1, okay, that's 5 million?
Yeah.
My eyes getting big.
Based on 10,000 is the first 50,000?
Okay.
Yeah. And, what isn't factored into here, and we recognize, is that as we increase our contract manufacturing, the price is going to go down. So small units are going to cost us, double what they're going to cost us to year 3, when they're going to cost us approximately 70% less. So
What are you considering a unit, and how much can that cover?
1 unit could basically cover, a 1 acre pond, a 2 acre pond. It depends on what the USDA and the local government provides as regulatory guidance of what they want to measure. Like locally, counties and mosquito control management districts in Florida, they cover certain areas and they write their own guidance. In other states, individual contractors work for the state, and they have to monitor the temperature logs in order to apply pesticides, and that's when they get paid the most.
So these units are both the food trucking
yeah, they're
sensors
combined.
and the mosquitoes?
Correct.
So if you can only do one, which one do you do?
If we can only do one, the first one that we would roll out would be mosquitoes, because there's less FCC regulations. There's a lower barrier, and the current unit that they're using is $200 per unit, and we will still, it's going to cost us $70 hard costs for the sensor development for small unit manufacturer, which will go down to approximately 30.
So your market is with local governments?
Right, local and state governments, mosquito control districts, and, if you're a resort owner and you want to monitor things, there's other things that we can do
So how
consulting.
big is that market overall now?
In the districts
Mosquito
that,
control.
mosquito control, nationwide is, in excess of $500 million.
Okay, and how, based on these unit sales, how much of it would be
It'd be about
mosquitoes
20.
and how much of that market would you be thinking you're getting?
For the projections here, it's just more or less looking at a 50-50 split because we do have good relationships with some of the seafood distributors, Eglin's Best and Dole, so we'd expect to at least get 50% perishable goods.
So
but
25,000 units of mosquito control sensors, how much of that market would that be?
0.001%. 0.01%.
The units sold, I want to make sure I'm reading this right, it's 2,000, 10,000, and 50,000, is that right?
Yes.
So, being a pessimist, I would say those are just really round numbers. So how much actual thought went into that?
Well, for the first 2-year projections is the 23 mosquito control districts plus Key West because they have one of the larger mosquito control budgets. We would, with deployment based upon just Florida, the 2,000 is highly attainable. The 10,000 would be looking if we just go with South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, and Florida, just staying concentrated in the Southeast, focusing our efforts. 10,000 is attainable. We'd hope that once we generated enough market interest and a reputation for quality, that the 50,000 would, exponentially be able to.
Yeah, I think the message I'm trying to give is, when I see numbers like that, it just says you picked a number and then you're going to justify how big the market that you have to hit.
Because
to meet
everything's
that number.
even, everything's
Yeah.
got
Yeah,
all
like
these zeros.
2,000, 10,000, 50,000. My students, I teach entrepreneurship for engineers, and my students do the exact same thing. When you ask, okay, show me exactly where those customers are and so on. Usually you hear, well, that's an area here. It's 5 times the number I have up here, therefore I think we can hit it.
Okay.
So I think the biggest, so I saw this about 4 or 5 years ago. When this used to be an integrated technology, an ITD project,
Yeah.
it was called, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it was focused on perishables, food, and pharmaceuticals, if I remember right, primarily. And so I think you do yourself a disservice by saying, okay, here's perishables, and all of a sudden you flip over to mosquitoes.
Right.
I understand the base technology may serve both, but
It's
there's-
confusing,
there's
they
so
don't seem to go,
divergent
food and
stories.
mosquitoes don't
Yeah.
seem to go together.
Okay.
Yeah, there's such divergent stories that, when you flip over to mosquitoes, what it told me is you don't believe enough in the perishables to go in that, because the perishables can be a huge market, right? You've got
Correct.
food, you've got the pharmaceuticals high value, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think you have to pick one or the other.
I couldn't, I think it's my only, I think, I could tell there's a little bit of stress about presenting it, but I thought you did a really good job. I think you fought through it and you really hit the main points. I think you're telling, in my opinion, 2 separate stories. The product may be a base that's the same,
Right.
but it's going to be 2 different marketing budgets, operating expenses, sales teams. It would be, you'd almost start a parent company and license it out to 2 subs and run 2 different, companies, but it just doesn't pivot well in the pitch either. You're just like all of a sudden it just turns a page and we're onto a new product, and then the financials are both, it seems, but a little more mosquito heavy.
So if you pick one and tell the whole story and advantages and I'm going to talk about your competitive advantage in technology in just a
Yeah.
moment, and then blow that all out, and then having your summary be, and this technology platform can also be applied
Yeah.
to X, Y, Z, Q, P, R. That will work better for you than
Okay.
trying to do this dual name. They're completely, it's just jarring to listen to when there's the 2. But what I think you need to put much quicker in the presentation, like right up front, is that when you first start talking about temperature control, I don't know about these guys, but the first thing I come to mind is temperature control. What possibly can be protectable and an advantage to some different method of temperature control. You finally get to it, you know, there's the algorithms and there's the data overlay and there's the not disposable. I mean, you've listed in your presentation some really great meaty advantages. And by the way, you have patents. But you've got to get that up front. I call it meeting the objectives, meeting the objections that your audience has. You've got to know what's going to be in your audience's head right off the bat. And right off the bat, I'm thinking, oh, there just can't be anything protectable about temperature control. So you've got to address that first. And then the other thing is you got to have, you know, your elevator pitch didn't have any problem solution in it. You've got to show that there's a problem, there's a market need, a customer need, an issue, and you've got a solution, a unique solution to it. And so if you've got that up front and had it part of your pitch, then that pitch can also be kind of your first slide of your presentation where you're answering that objection, there's a problem, we've got a protectable solution, we've got a competitive advantage, and then go into the details of your story.
Okay.
The term time temperature integrator is a very engineering type term.
Yeah, we have a different thing that we're looking at. We're gonna.
Well, one word, how do you decide the kind of position that the word I would use is diagnostic? I mean, what you've got is a diagnostic device. It's not a med deck, it's a diagnostic device to assure food quality. You know, it goes down the perishable route because I don't understand the mosquito route as well, but you know, should assure perishable quality. And it's no longer a 0 or 1. It's not a stamp-on date on the milk. It's really, you know, being able to expand that knowledge base so that, you know, all along this custody chain, all the way to, you know, the point of sale, people can control their process to optimize their financial position within that custody chain. So I think because again, I had the advantage. I know a lot about this when it was ITV into Bruce Well. But, I mean, the fact that Sue said I thought it was a control, it's not a control. I mean, it allows you to control process around it along, again, that value chain. But you want to make that, I think, very, very clear about it.
I don't understand it like he does, but first you said that the truckers would turn the temperatures off.
You turn the truck off.
Turn the truck
off the refrigerator.
And that's what drops the temperature down and gets a big fluctuation. Is there a way that this can control? In other words, it gives you the data, but is there a way to make it better to keep those truckers from turning the trucks off?
Well, you can't. Yeah, you can't stop them from turning the system off. And the other thing is you can't stop them from. There's a related to us that there was an attractive person on the loading dock at this one distributor thing, and every person talk to them, they take extra time, and that door is open. And they had started with a chemical, like a thermochemical solution. So what happens is the backside of that last pallet would always come up that it was no good. Because what happened is the guy opened the door, would talk to the other individual for a long period of time.
Is there a way that eventually you could have this monitoring system send an alert back to somebody? So that somebody could call and say, shut the darn door, or turn your truck the freak back on?
Well, I think you need to do that. I think it's a penalty system. So all along the value chain here, you got people who do dumb things because at the end of the day, they're not being penalized for doing that dumb thing at that point of the value chain.
So let you pick a better logistical company that gives you better service.
It's a data collection.
And they're collecting it now. I mean, I just read a commercial about what they're collecting on their drivers. And why drivers are going to be with this company versus another.
That's right.
That's
so
why we talk.
If he's got a trucking company, and I do, and we all do, all of a sudden we have quantitative and qualitative data that we said, this is why you want to use us for your perishable goods.
Right.
Well, that's another thing.
It gives you a competition.
Well, Susan, are these like refrigerators with the doors open too long, their alarms?
Well,
Is that already on there, or?
Yeah, that's why it's an integrated. I mean, I think what you're saying is that, you know, the alarm systems are 0 or 1.
Right.
It's just like stamp on dates. They're digital, right? So what this does is it literally integrates time and temperature.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, there's certain spikes that is
Very
right and wrong, and you got to stay below. But the reality is the degradation of whatever perishable is to a great degree is dependent on integration under the curve.
and you might
So
want to
you know
add.
the curve is coming up. and you have this software that'll let you know, you got 5 more minutes.
Then you got
this
certain-
temperature, then, and you can get it on your phone. I think of that like
Yeah.
being able to control my air conditioning in my house.
Well, it becomes self-regulated the moment
That's
they
right.
know that if they're gonna, the distributor, home base is gonna know if that door was open too long, that product is at risk.
And that driver's gonna
The
get.
driver starts, drivers are regulated heavily on, they can't be early, they can't be
Yeah,
late.
yeah.
And they're always on time, but it's
And-
self-regulated.
And this is something else I think you might want to add to it, is that trucking companies, distributors already are collecting lots of data, and so this is not something completely new and different that you're going to be asking them to do
Yeah.
through your sales channel. It's going to be another tool in their tool basket, and so I would somehow incorporate that into your
Do
presentation.
you sell that tool to the company, or do you run it after you sell it? In other words, software you sell, do they get to control it, or do you get
Well,
that?
the retailer, for what we talked about what they're willing to, their market perception by consumers, what they're determining quality on that one algorithm, that's self-determined. Because they're gonna say, squishy bananas, or this and this, or this. But
No, but what are you selling? A device,
we
a
sell the
software, an
device, we
algorithm?
sell the device, we sell the software, we sell access to the algorithm for the prediction and the modeling. And also, we're a third-party repository for their data, so
Exactly.
somebody says salmonella, outbreak or listeria or something, what we look at in our final, further as we go along is that we're gonna have the born on date from the farm to the fork. So it goes all the way through. Now
I'd give them the product and do a
Yeah.
subscription model on the informatics.
The
Yeah.
data is
That's
what's
what I-
valuable.
Right.
The data is going to have huge value.
Yeah, you need to think through that, and you need to be clear in your pitch exactly what it is you're selling, product or service, or product and service, or product plus a subscription to a
Right.
data
Well,
plan.
the subscription means more service.
Yeah.
More.
because we looked at, basically across the industry, if we have, cantaloupe guy here, this and this and this, from the market research reports, is we have the full data to, make a $4,000, $7,000,
So,
market.
then maybe you become a razor blade model, you sell them the razor, and then the subscription is the razor blade, because it's a repeat, and it's
That's
variable.
really investable.
Yeah, so
Recurring
the
revenue.
recurring revenues, for the monitoring of what they're doing and getting access to the data is what we were stipulating on it. I didn't put the numbers, the monitoring income's in there, but it's not really broken out.
Because I think you
Now,
also
we have a whole nother slide on that business model, though, and what it is you're selling exactly, and what's gonna be one time, what's recurring, how it fits into what they're doing already. And then, when you break out those units and service and everything, then when you move to the financial slide, you'll kind of set people up for it a little bit
Because
better.
it is monitoring, but it's also informatics, right? I mean,
Right.
it's retroactive analysis of driver
Yeah.
quality. You can de-identify competitor information so they can see where they fall on a curve, a graph against other other quality checks. I mean, I like that. And by the way, we're all excited in talking about one of the segments, right? The other,
Which, by the way, is the one he identified as the one he wouldn't go after.
Would
So
not.
all of this is irrelevant to you.
no, the mosquito stuff's tough though, because personally, I don't know if anyone has experience selling to local municipalities, but
Yeah.
there's some really strong budget cuts.
That's a bear.
The mosquito issue, I mean, I think you probably have relationships that could turn a couple opportunities, but long-term, whether there's you have a small regional outbreak, maybe one person gets infected with something, it's hard to see how that trickles back down to the municipality needing, to spend money to fix it. I mean, there's certainly pressure, and there'll be political pressure, but versus like you have it in at Dole, that's pretty interesting, right? I mean,
In either of those devices, how big is the device, and how long does the battery last?
Currently, the device is approximately 2.5 inches long. So, you could do it pallet by pallet. Because the AND software, the benefit of it is that we're reworking it now, is that in burst mode, as it's talking to each other, it just basically starts with 1, 2, 3, and serially downloads those.
Or so you're talking about like AA batteries or something?
Just a watch battery. And I'll give you at least 30 days.
But you
Wow.
could put these at whatever the sub-pallet level is that,
Yeah.
you know, you want to get down to wherever they're gonna.
Wherever they want, because Walmart, the problem with Walmart wanted the individual shipment container, each individual box of hamburger. But that's, a little bit cost prohibitive if you.
Well, it's cost prohibitive for hamburger, but it's certainly not for pharmaceuticals,
Correct.
right? I mean, so I think you would design this differently for the different markets.
We have a different solution that we're going to be disclosing on how we really monitor the internal environment of the pallet. That's different.
I mean, I would say that I think you've really got something here, but you have to pull out the story that's
Yeah, I can take the
telling.
mosquitoes out for
Right.
the final presentation.
And you need to describe your advantages early.
And I have a model that you're talking about, but some people say that it's too complicated, and
Well, if you take all the mosquito stuff out, you got
then I
time to do it.
have time to put the model in for later.
Well, or we'll leave the mosquito stuff and take out the perishables. I think the perishables is more easy to understand. The mosquito stuff scares me, because you're dealing with small municipalities. The perishables, you got 100 different companies you can go after today. The just retired CTO for Campbell's lives here in town.
Okay.
And you can talk to him.
Yeah, the guy from Constellation Brands for the wine,
Yeah.
he just moved into my streets, but I haven't.
Yeah, so there's 100 people like that. But when you say, okay, I'm going to attack the mosquito market, it's first of all, I think, more difficult for people to understand.
And in that same
Small number.
Gainesville Sun you pulled the ad from were a whole bunch of letters to the editor from residents of Alachua County that wanted nothing to do with mosquito control.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I think generally pretty good. I mean, you've got a good presentation style, You seem to know what you're doing. It's just the story was, right at the first slide, so perishable foods and mosquitoes.
Right.
And literally I was thinking,
What the heck?
is mosquito the new menu or something? And, I was, and then you made, I thought, verbally presentation was smooth, you just kind of flowed from one to the other. But to me, I just went, okay, I got perishable, shit, mosquito, what are we, it's a hard term.
Yeah,
Understanding the
I
technology.
think the only thing that has us, one is reduced regulatory, two, USDA here on campus is one of the main sites that
Mhm.
assists our troop overseas with the mosquito populations. I think that, from the talkings we've had and what they've asked for, sort of for specifications for solutions, I think it's something for a small company, I think those contract numbers are.
Well, but you just said something different.
Yeah.
You said mosquito control for troops overseas.
That's all
And then that's a whole different thing, okay? So that is something that maybe you have an into and has a different price point, a different sales cycle, a different need than a bureaucratic county or city government.
Okay.
So if that's something you want to focus on as the way through DOD dollars and
Yeah.
urgent need to get your device validated and
Yeah.
used, that's very, very different than saying you're going to sell to the city
And
of
much more
Fayetteville.
interesting.
Yeah.
And much more interesting to an investor,
Yeah, I mean,
at least this investor.
For that point, that's sort of why we're still sticking with the mosquito side.
Then that's the story you need to tell.
Validation.
If you
the
really,
USDA says
yeah.
good, then we're good.
If you're gonna do that, I would actually break this into two companies.
Okay.
And one company focused on the perishable, one on the mosquito. You could take the same technology and license them for different fields or whatever, but does Real McCoy, the company, do something other than this?
I do consulting.
Okay.
So,
because the name
That would
doesn't
change the name,
match.
yeah, the name is horrible.
How did you get into this?
Yeah.
how did I get into this?
Yeah, I know your background with VA and.
So one of the other disclosures that we have that's a provisional patent now, my partner has, and what happens is all these Groupons and everything's have all been coming out all at the same time, these coupon technologies, but the thing is that it costs millions and millions of dollars for you to get into a retail store, to do social media, to get all these people to do it. Well, we look at it from the point of, if we're already embedded in the retailer, so when you walk through Publix, there's a guy at the end of the night that goes around and writes down the temperatures from each of the coolers. He really just has to hold out a smartphone and walk within 65 feet, and the store has all of its data from all of its refrigerators for the entire day. The thing is that we can integrate your position, GPS position within the store to the coolers on what you're targeted to purchase. So if you put in a shopping list and you said spaghetti and Parmesan cheese, and I have a wife that would say, well, why don't you get spaghetti sauce? Well, the thing is, it's basically it will prep you for whatever you have on your list based upon your location. But the other layer of Real McCoy is that the things that you're buying that are perishable meats, it basically is going to give you the born on dating sort of validation of quality that that store is providing to you. You know, if you have a steak that's, you know, you like your steaks aged, but most people are going to say, I'd rather have a steak that's 5 days old versus a steak that's 14 days old, that's been sitting into a refrigerator.
Yeah, which is the last thing the store wants you to do.
Right, but that's...
Because they want you to buy the 14-year-old steak, they really do.
Right, so, but the thing is with the sales forecasting is that what we try to do is so that they control their inventory better and supply and
Yeah.
demand, and based upon every time there's a Gator game, there's this many of sales.
That's
which
seventh
they-
generation though. I
Yeah,
think
that's, so that's why this comes first, but the other provisional patents based upon GPS location and, you know, real-time digital couponing based
Yeah.
upon proximity in the store.
Yeah, I think you gotta come up with a company name, company concept
Yeah.
for the thing you're gonna do first, and maybe it is two different things.
We have the website for competitive freshness as one of the things, but everybody just thought that, after we went through the first round, when we did the tech showcase and things, and we did the startup before that, the meeting before that, they, you know, a few people said, well, why don't, your last name's McCoy, this is the Real McCoy, why don't you call it the Real McCoy, so that's what we...
You ask 20
Yeah.
people, you're gonna get 20
Yeah.
different answers, but
I'm not a marketing person,
Yeah.
but,
Especially with, because it's B2B, and I mean, I actually, my one comment was gonna be name, I just didn't have the heart to bring it up, but I think B2B, it just, that cleverness stuff doesn't translate well. You definitely say
Yeah,
that
I'm
for
not-
what
I'm
you're
not-
talking, if you have
the names,
Don't take it
all I gotta
personally,
change.
really.
Yeah, but the names on it has to
No,
change.
but I think you're right though, which is, if you know, when you start talking about consumer interfacing apps,
Yeah.
the Real McCoy makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm gonna hold my phone up to figure out if this food is the Real McCoy, that makes great sense, but selling it to
A business.
businesses, I don't think it translates as well.
So then maybe that's your product name when you get to the consumer market, but now you gotta think of something else.
That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, you know, we have our distinct spheres where everybody's working, and this is the one that we know can
It's good.
get legs first.
iPod, iPhone, you gotta give them the iPod first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right.